Alrighty, my friends, Chris Peach here with the Money Peach Podcast, episode 146, the Money Peach Podcast, Money Peach live show. Now, this episode actually came across my desk a few weeks ago. The guests we're bringing on, and it was perfect timing. You see, my wife, Andrea, and I, we just got done moving our 87-year-old grandmother from her house that she lived in into a senior living community. And I can tell you from experience that this was not as simple as I would have thought. It was contractors, it was paint, it was carpet, it was real estate agents, which were great. It was pictures. It was people offering to buy the house, people backing out, back and forth. It was showings and having to go pick up grandma and move her out. And it was a lot of work. And running a full-time business and having kids and having our own lives, this was a huge thing for us. And so I came across this guy named Phillip Vincent. He's the co-founder of Mom's House. And you know what he does? I find out after the fact is he specializes in taking care of people like me and also finding a great real estate investment in the senior living community. So without further ado, let me bring on co-founder of Mom's House, Phillip Vincent. Phillip, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me on. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about your background. I know you're in St. Louis, Missouri, but you've been in the real estate world for 20 plus years. Tell me a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of segue into who you help.
Sure. I always like to say I did this business backwards. When I was 20 years old, I built my first house. I started off as a developer and a builder, and I worked my way back over these 20 years back to a wholesaler. And the reason why is pretty simple. My personality, I wasn't a very good adult babysitter. I wasn't a very good, I didn't like working with contractors. I didn't like working with municipalities. Ground development was, there was money in it, but it was a long drawn out process. And my personality is more, I love to be belly to belly with the seller, solving their problems, fixing their problems, and moving on to the next one. Solving problems, fixing their problems, moving on to the next one. So acquisitions from a real estate investment side fit my personality the best. And so in my curiosity, even today, I love, my favorite discussion is what is the best lead? What is the best appointment in our real estate investor world? And I found it with the adult children who are moving their parents into senior living. That exact moment is where I, as the trusted investor, has the most value. And so I set out a decade ago to break into the senior living world, and we're going to talk about that today.
So breaking into the senior living world, if for those of you listening, we all have parents, we have grandparents. You're going to go through this process. We just happened to do it in 2020. That was our year, my wife and I. But everybody's going to eventually go through this process. So what I'm talking about is taking mom or dad who, right now they might be totally fine, everything's good, but moving down the road, it's going to be tough for them to make a lot of these decisions. It's going to be tough for them to, go and interview a real estate agent and find the contractors and all these things. So it falls on the kids. It falls on the adult children, which was us. So tell me kind of those pain points. What are some of the biggest pain points that maybe people aren't realizing? I've been through them, but I want to hear it from your perspective.
They're giant problems. So usually, I'll just tell the generic story. Dad passed away 8 years ago. Mom's been doing the best she can. She's on a fixed income. The house is paid off. She's been piddling around the house, and she fell again. She went and got a surgery. The doctor said, hey, in 3 weeks when mom's out of rehab, she can't move back home. She has to move into 24-hour care. Now the adult children are scrambling. It's literally called, Chris, it's literally called crisis management care. Crisis care. You're in crisis. Why? Because they're really the most important thing is, where is mom going to get the best care, right? Mm-hmm. And so if me and you were brothers, Chris, would that be next to your house for mom's best care, next to my house, next to her house? What level of care do we need? We're not trained for this. And we always say, I call it the most responsible child. My oldest, most responsible child ever was 80. He was helping his 98-year-old mother-in-law. So when I say the word child, I'm really talking about, he could be as high as 80 years old in my case. The burden falls on usually one of the siblings the most. And I find it to be a lot of times the female daughter that's helping mom not only do the day-to-day living, but get to the doctor's appointments. And now let's talk about the biggest one. The average child lives 400 miles away from mom. So the one that lives in town is usually one that has that most burden on them. And now they have to deal with the brother in North Carolina, the sister in Chicago, who are very opinionated. And of course, nobody wants to think the mom's doing bad. Nobody wants to think our mom's ever going to get old. And it's that first moment, like you said, where the adult children are now making decisions for their mother. What a weird shift that is. Well, how painful that it is, even for families that get along. This is a hard time. I mean, there's emotions going on. And I think, we had talked about earlier that your life or your family, you just went through this. Your life didn't stop either. You're busy.
No.
And a lot of couples, I hate to say this, but they might break up during this period if it takes too long, because if the wife is dragged away and the husband's needy and he's like, why are you never home? But she's got all these, what I'm trying to say is that adult child, the most responsible child, is being pulled in so many directions that it is one of the hardest times of their lives.
I can totally agree. We have Nana. Nana's 87 years old. Nana was living in a home. She has a 80-pound dog, and the fire department called us and said, hey, we're here at your house, and Nana fell. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So this happened once, then it happened again. And then finally we just realized, like, Nana, we want you to be able to stay in this house, but for your safety, we need you to, move somewhere where you're safer. So that became a job that my wife did about 80% of the work, but it became a job of, okay, where are we going to move her? Okay. What takes an 80-pound dog? Where is it close by that we can visit? But then we also have this thing over here is, okay, we have this house. How much is it worth? How do we sell it? Interviewing real estate agents, then we have to get pictures. Oh, there's things wrong with the house that need to be updated before it can sell. So, we have termites or whatever it might be. So it was just nonstop. Then once we get the real estate agent in place, once we have the pictures, once we're listed on the MLS, then there's showings. Well, guess who has to now move in with us full time, because we still don't have the senior living community dialed in yet. So now we're taking in Nana. Nana was wonderful. I loved living with Nana. Every night we had a Modelo beer together. So we have Nana living with us. Then we have the dog living with us. Then we have our kids who are being in homeschool because of COVID. Then we're trying to sell the house. We're doing showings. There was an issue with the keys. We're driving across town, getting a key in the lockbox. And I'm like, who has time for this? This is insanity. What do people do if they're out of town or they're across the country or they don't live in the same city? How does this even work? Do you have to, and this is where I was thinking, we are so blessed that at least we live here, but it was a 25, 30-hour a week job for us.
Imagine that, 30 hours. Who has that extra 30 hours? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It was huge.
So my question to you would be is, how did you, and this is a great, I love what you said. How did you decide who to get advice from for care?
For care?
Yeah.
So that was another thing. We went and interviewed multiple places. Yeah. So we went from one place to the next place to the next place. And there's also, it's not just are they going to take care of Nana, but can she afford it? Do they take a dog? Is it close by? I mean, there's a lot of factors. Now I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. And for those of you that don't know, Florida and Arizona are like the capitals of the United States for where people are snowbirds, or a lot of the seniors live here full time. So, I mean, we have a lot of options when it comes to senior living communities here in the Phoenix area. But yeah, it was that too. It was interviewing. It was finding what's the cost point, what can we, and it was also looking at what's the ongoing thing. Is there more care as Nana gets older at this facility, or do we have to move again?
Which you don't want to do to Nana.
No.
Right.
No.
Man, yes, this story should be on my business card, right? What you're saying, let me tell you how big it is, actually. It's 75% of Americans over the age of 65 will move into some sort of assisted care before they pass away. So everybody who works probate deals and all these other types of leads, the giant part of the market is actually what you guys are going through right now. And what I try to help people understand is the people you relied on for your information, the experts in senior living. If you relied on somebody there's something called a placement agent. So a placement agent would work for you for free, and they would go interview you, meet Nana, understand what her best needs are, and try to help you with navigating through that process, right? Because it's overwhelming. That placement agent that you trust in helping you place your mother or grandmother in this case, you trust that person. They're helping with end of life care. If that person says, hey, you need to call Phillip, he'll come in and make you an offer on the house exactly the way it sits. Take your heirlooms. We don't have to worry about the closing date. We don't have to worry about the showings. You don't have to get rid of the shag carpeting. You don't have to list it. You don't have to clean it out. Because keep in mind, the average house is probably like 1,700 square feet, and they're going to move to a 12 by 12 room. Well, 99% of their possessions need to go somewhere. I love what you said about calling the realtor. Realtors, I'm not against realtors, but here's the difference. A realtor walks in and goes, clean this place out. Here's my list of demands I want to do before I put my precious face next to it, right? That's what happened. me, I walk in and go, when do you want to close? Do you want an extra couple days after you close to have just to get the rest of the stuff out? I make the process from, I see the adult children, I see the weight get lifted off of. They're like, oh, I don't have to come back here again. If I can catch, here in St. Louis, we have basements. If you can catch a family on the third weekend of dragging boxes out of grandma's basement up to the dumpster, and I say, please stop doing this, I am giving life vests to people who are drowning, right? They want what I have. Nobody wants to rehab the house, but they do want to do right by mom, right? And in this instance where grandma or Nana needed money for care, the thought of doing a rehab, it's like, who's going to pay for that rehab? She needs money. And by the way, since the market's so hot right now, how easy was it getting contractors?
Yeah, exactly. Here in Phoenix, the market's really hot. So yeah, that was another thing too. Luckily, we knew some contractors. So kind of doing the research here is when I was looking at what your services are. So you're saying that you take this 3-4 month deal process and you're literally streamlining it into weeks long, correct?
Yep.
Because you're getting rid of a lot of the back and forth with, and I'm not against real estate agents at all, just like you. I like real estate agents. We had a great one, thank God, but I've heard some horror stories. But so you're taking away a lot of the back and forth, a lot of, did this person get approved? Did this person get approved? Does this person have an FHA that's coming in? All that kind of stuff's going away. Yep. And then you're handling all the contractors and all of that on your end that have to fix it. You're not, the sellers really, it's basically just, they're up and they're out and they're taking their stuff with them.
Yep, exactly right. And I want you to look at the senior living world. This is probably good. I want your audience to think of this. Every time they see a senior living community, they need to think of them as an apartment building. And let's say you and I own that apartment building. If we knew that our tenant only lasted 28 months, we would have a problem. And that problem is there's this revolving door of people moving in and out because they either need the next level of care, like you said, for Nana, or they pass away. So if you have only 28 months with your tenant, no matter what, this is average, right? But on anything you can do to add time to the front end makes them more profitable as a company. And the industry, while they're in the care industry and they should stay in the care industry, they're not very good at technology or forward thinking. They think we've always used realtors, let's continue to use realtors. But even though a lot of times, even in a good day, that realtor, it might take 2 months to clean it out, 2 months to rehab it, a month to get it on the market. And mom might not get her money for 6 months. And sometimes that deficit and that burden is too much for these. Most of the time, they would much rather, if they're treated fairly, to have their money, to know they go into the senior living community with their money in their pocket and no more stress. Because that adult children, like you said, 30 hours a week, most families don't want to do that.
I don't know any families that want to do that. Yeah, who just says, hey, starting tomorrow, we're going to add a 30-hour work schedule to your already schedule, right? I mean, and as kids and as grandchildren, you feel like, hey, it's a responsibility on my shoulders, but there has to be a better way. I wish I would have known about this better way. Now, so what I really like here, kind of transitioning here, so we kind of talked about how this helps the consumer, the client. It really streamlines this process. Months of aggravation to weeks of just very streamlined process, which I love, okay? Because it's a stressful time. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, so you're coming in with cash buyers, and this is where it's going to interest a lot of our audience here. So you're coming in with cash buyers. Where are these cash buyers coming from, and how does someone become a cash buyer?
Great question. They are your audience, right? If I just wanted a warm body in every city, I could have did that very quickly. The problem is, in the real estate world, we do a lot of networking, and people are always showing pictures of their checks, right? It's like very, and by the way, I have a big personality, right? So I get the industry, like we're showing our checks and look how much money I made and all this stuff. And when people hear, right now people are listening to this and they're thinking, I'm going to go and stop in and walk in and put my hand out and say, hey, I'm Bob and I buy houses from old people moving into nursing homes. And I said that sentence on purpose because they're going to blacklist themselves without even knowing that they're doing it. The bluntness and the transactional nature of the real estate industry does not play well in the senior living space. So how do they become, this is called Mom's House. How do they become a certified investor? I teach people not only what to say, who to talk to, but what not to say. I mean, my bumps and bruises that I've learned over 8 years, right? I've boiled down to here's who to talk to and why to build sustainable relationships. And I think if we're talking to real estate investors right now, we spend so much time on these spray and pray models like direct mail, pay-per-click, right, where we spend tens of thousands of dollars a month for that one transaction. What I'm telling you is that there's people in the senior living world, now I'll even tell you the list of who those people are, that are the best referrers of people to me because they're dealing with those families every single day. And I position your listeners as a solution that faces the senior living world, and everybody cares about what's in it for them. So the placement agent, the downsizing agent, the social worker, the proprietor of the senior living, the director of operations at a senior living community, the crisis care elder attorneys, all of those people are having conversations with that family at the exact right time as what you just went through. And so those people, when done right, once they trust your listeners, they will refer to them year after year, month after month from now on, as long as they're in the industry. So it's the best place to spend your time. What I'm trying to say, like, I can train your people how to build relationships that are almost like oil wells that keep pumping out appointments year after year.
What was the statistic that you used just a few minutes ago about the percentage of people that are going to be moving out and into senior living communities?
75% of Americans over the age of 65 will live in some sort of assisted care before they pass away.
Okay, so there is a slew of continuous leads coming in. And I think one of the things that you were kind of hitting on there, and I kind of felt it too, is when you think of the term, and I'm not saying all real estate investors are this way, but when you think of a term real estate investor, it's that sign you see on the side of the road that says, "We buy ugly houses," right? And it's that number you call and they show up. And so they're very transactional people. They're not relationship people, they're transactional people. And if you look at the demographics of people in their 80s currently, they didn't grow up in a transactional world. They grew up in a relationship world. They don't message with one of these. They message with one of these. They like sit down face to face, shoulder to shoulder, and have a cup of coffee, right? And they talk it out. Where today's generation, we're so used to our best friend. We say we know that person's our best friend. We haven't seen him in 2 years, but we text him, or we're friends on Facebook. That's not the 87-year-old community. My grandmother is not like that. Okay, so she needs somebody that's going to be less of a shark, and I would say more of a teddy bear.
You better believe it. And it goes for not only the people you're going to buy houses from, but also the senior living industry. They will see through the sharkiness immediately. They should have a wall up because the seniors get taken advantage of a lot, right? They do. And so being trustworthy, all I want people to do is do what they say. You know how hard that is for real estate investors sometimes? What keeps me up at night is the guy that's going to write a 30-day contract with 30 days worth of outs and then back out because he didn't get a wholesale. I can't have that guy in mom's house. I can't. That butterfly effect ripples across the whole nation of what we're trying to do here, which is shine a big bright light that to sell you when you're moving your parents into senior living, it should be easier. And I try to make every decision for mom's house to say, am I putting the adult children first in every decision that I make? The user experience, right? You guys that you and your wife just went through. Can I make it easier on you? Because remember, I'm really, as much as I'm talking to the seniors, I'm really helping those adult children because now they're all of a sudden making these decisions for Nana, right? And man, is it stressful all the way around it. So I want people that have empathy. And we know we're talking about the checks, and I didn't finish my point on that. And so in real estate, we show pictures of our checks, right? It's like, oh, everybody's yeah. When you network in senior living, I've been doing it for 10 years, Chris. I've not seen one person's check yet. Not one person has shown me the size of their check in senior living. Why? Because that's not how it's done, right? They're very collaborative in senior living if they trust you.
So and I'm telling you right now, it's transactional, it's the relationship.
And what in life isn't? You know what I mean? I think, I don't know. I like to be belly to belly. Why I went back to being the wholesaler, I wanted to be belly to belly, fixing problems, helping people. And that's who I'm looking for. People like that nationwide.
So I like how, and on your site right now, and one of the things that I really like about your site, let me add this to the stream right here, is if I'm looking at your site here, it is very focused on mom. Very focused on somebody that I can relate to, grandmother, mom, who is going to be doing that. It's not saying, here's how much people are making or here's the check or anything like that. It's very tailored to, at the top here, it says join certified home buyer network. So one of the things, my question is if you're saying join certified home buyer network, it's not like anybody can just come in and become, you do some vetting.
A lot of betting. I say no more than I say yes. And it's
it's
not a matter of, I don't need a guy that's, does, 10 houses a month or anything like that. It doesn't matter if you need the competency to be able to close. In my training, I don't teach you how to write a contract. I don't teach you what color cabinets to put in these houses. I don't tell you how to get hard money, right? You should already know those things. You're already a real estate investor. This is for the guy that wants to add the best tool I've ever found in their tool belt alongside of their already existing real estate business, whether it's big or small, right? But I want somebody that already does. I'm not going to teach you how to be a real estate investor. You probably already are. I'm going to teach you how to find a niche that you're going to be like, oh my God, I wish I would have known about this. And it's so obvious. Like if you think about your best clients ever, they're not 28 years old. They're probably 82 years old, right? And they probably lived there for 40 years, not 2 years. And so it's so obvious. I've married the two, the senior living world and the real estate world, because, let's talk about direct mail. It's been tried and true for 30, 40 years, but it's still spray and pray. You send out 2,000 cards because you're hoping that they need to sell. What if you cut all of that out completely and people raise their hand and say, I need to sell? And you're getting referred by somebody that they trust with mom's care. I always liken it to, imagine if the mailman came to your door and said, call this guy, he's the most trusted, don't call these other 37 postcards. How valuable that would be. Yet the postman's not even as trusted as the person that's helping you with mom's end of life care. That person's trusted even more than your mailman. And that's what I'm teaching people how to do, is build relationships with that person. So when they refer to me, they're like, Phillip must be the guy. He's got to be the guy, or why else would this person refer to me?
Phillip, how can some of our listeners get in contact with you if they want to learn not only the side of, okay, I have a parent that's going to be in this position soon, and I don't want to go through the process that Chris and Andrea just went through of 30 hours a week for a couple of months. How can they get a hold of you? And then also on the investor side, if there's somebody out there that has a heart of gold, that is compassionate, that's not transactional, but relationship focused, and they're already in the investing space and they're looking to maybe diversify a little bit, how can they get in contact with you?
Momshouse.com. That's the perfect place to go. I want them to know more about what we're doing on a national level, is the Mom's House.
So we'll put links in the show notes to momshouse.com. You don't have to write this down. We'll have links in the show notes. Again, if you're a first-time listener, all of our show notes, moneypeach.com/session 146 is going to be with the show notes for this episode. Phillip, thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish we would have had you on the show about 9 months ago. It would have saved me about 120 hours worth of work, but we did it. We got through it. But I'm glad that you're doing this. I'm glad that there's people out there that are taking the step towards helping the senior community, helping them in a relationship way, not a transactional way. And also, if you do a good job, you're going to obviously increase your investment portfolio in a good way. So, Phillip, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Chris.